In less than a week from now, India will be hosting the G20 summit. India in 2023 led a people's presidency of the G20. But not just that, 2023 has been known for Global South actually coming out and India emerging as a leader of the Global South. To talk about that and a lot more, joining us is the Deputy Minister for External Affairs, Meenakshi Lekhi ji. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am. I want to begin by asking you about the preparations that are underway. You're right now coming from one of the meetings that were taking place, and to show the cultural side of India, but also the strategic side. Bharat Mandapam was inaugurated by the Prime Minister a few days back. How are the preparations like in New Delhi? I ask you not just as a minister who is holding multiple responsibilities, important responsibilities for the G20, but also somebody who's hosting this as a representative of New Delhi.
So I feel very nice because the host city is my constituency, and all the beautification work which has been done and which you can see all around, especially in New Delhi. I'm grateful that Lieutenant Governor has personally supervised many things and brought in so many corporate households and others, and from Delhi Can Board to Transport Ministry, Delhi Government, PWD, CPWD. Everyone has been brought together, strung up their efforts to revamp Delhi, and you see those beautiful sculptures, etc., around most corners. Those have come from CSR funding also. So a lot of private people have come forward to support the cause, and of course Government of India has spent whatever Government of India has spent, which is few thousand crores on this hosting this particular event, which is of great importance to this country from two perspectives. One, G20 presidency has come India's way for the first time. India's been the host for the first time. Secondly, this is one event of this scale where all the heads of states of 20 most important countries and 9 other countries who are special invitees are going to descend on Delhi on one particular day. So this huge paraphernalia which works with something like G20 happens to be hosted by Delhi. And post-COVID, this is one such big event of its kind for the whole world to witness. So hosting itself has been quite a experience for everyone who's worked on this, even for people like you who will be covering it.
Yeah.
Because this is once in a lifetime kind of a thing which happens. But I'm sure India will get to host many such important events in near future.
Well, if I can take this a little further, 2023 has seen so many G20 events across India. I mean, it is unseen, unheard of. I have covered G20 in Australia and several other countries, but the kind of josh or the kind of enthusiasm that I can say among the common people, I mean, states coming out, private organizations coming out and organizing G20 events. So my question to you, ma'am, is how do you see India's presidency different from other presidencies, and how did India end up, in this people's presidency where people's participation was seen all across?
So let me straight away tell you the answer. The answer is India today is being led by a person called Mr. Narendra Modi, who's a people's person. So now his leadership itself is very grounded. So by virtue of being a people's person on everything, minutest of the details, he has his own way, and he communicates it very straightforward manner to each one of us. And so Jan Bhagidari, for example, was his brainwave, and he said, look, events happen, events can come and go, but we represent the people of India, and every Indian is a proud citizen of this country, and there has to be Jan Bhagidari in every event. 2, this is also a time when we will be spending money and we will be working for the country in branding India. While on one side we brand India, but it is not just branding, the assets need to be created for the people of India. Then India needs to be showcased. So engage as many people as you can And so engagement of people became relevant. Then even in countries, it was his idea, and I was present in that meeting when he said that can we have other countries other than G20 countries as invitees? So he called other countries other than invitees to be participants. Then just before G20, he held a forum for Global South. And in that interaction, he straight away asked and took the opinion from everybody that what is it that they would want to be addressed by the other countries. So he took those inputs forward to showcase that if we say Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world is one family, it cannot be that you leave out a few. So none be left out. Let everyone participate in the well-being, as the interdependence between each other, people and countries, is the prime method of engaging, and also that's a method which we should take forward. So in that context, India emerged as a leader of Global South and voicing their concern as part of G20. And I personally feel that, and this also comes as an experience as part of this entire conversation, that on one side there are 20 countries which represent the economic might of the world, because 85% of GDP comes from these 20 countries. So on all these fronts, if these 20 nations are going to decide, or whatever they are going to decide is going to impact the whole world, is going to impact the whole, every country. The ones who do not have a voice because they are not part of G20, can the world go ahead and work forward leaving them behind? Answer is no, because everybody needs to be taken together. So their voice needs to be voiced. So India becomes the voice of the voiceless, and voiceless in a room which is full of these powerful nations who control the global policy, and that policy will become redundant if the voice of 120 other countries doesn't get to be heard. So I think in that sense, the Prime Ministership of India, or India's Prime Minister and Mr. Modi's Prime Ministership, has brought in certain changes in the entire modus operandi, which is for everyone to see, and the results are for everyone to cherish. And in that sense, India's G20 presidency has been very different from other countries. And as you've covered Australia for that matter, I would like to name any other country, but before us, Indonesia, which happened at a time of COVID, Brazil would be next. And each country, each person who we have met had very high appreciation for the efforts of India. Very positive message about India. And that's what building brand India is all about. Quality with compassion is who we are.
You know, this was actually going to be my next question about Global South. At a time when India has seen this presidency, Global South is a term that has been used from the late 60s. But India has made Global South cool, or if I may actually use the term, sexy. You know, it is very important for the world to realize what Global South actually thinks and says. But I was recently in Europe, and I was speaking to a lot of diplomats and politicians, and there was increasing level of uncomfort in them whenever I use the term Global South. Why do you think this is so? And do you think that this is a time where India has shown, not just in the last 1 year, but over the years, that we can take independent positions, the biggest independent position being the Russia-Ukraine war, and you can't patronize us. You can't use that patronizing tone anymore, and India is going to reflect its own opinion, its own self-interest, and showcase that.
So if you take any action with good intention and logical intention, and you are logically able to explain your position, I think the world gets to listen to it, and they pay heed to what you say. Global South, if I may be a little more upfront and undiplomatic, I would say that Global South was a term which was used in a denigrated manner to denigrate other nations by saying, oh, underdeveloped nations. Yes. That is the context in which Global South was used. Now, Global South is being used in a different method. The different method is a more moralistic tone. And the moralistic tone is that no global north can survive and work without support from global south, because these are the countries which are high in resources. Maybe low on capital, but they are high in resources. So every resource is needed, even by the ones who are high in capital. Capital can best be utilized if it is put to right resource. So this correlation is what India has established. And India, by its presidency, has showcased that we are truly a nation which represents global north by virtue of being the fifth largest economy, but we also represent global south by being 1.4 billion people. And we are rightfully placed, and we've been part of global south for all times. So we are rightfully placed to articulate the right policies which will benefit both sides. We are like a bridge between north and south. And I say this, and I'm repeating myself, I say we are not just representing global south and north, we are also representing east and west, because we are an Eastern civilization by virtue of our democracy, rule of law, institutionalization. We are very much like a Western nation. So we are also a bridge between East and West. We are not an undemocratic country run by some military ruler. No, we are a democracy. We are run by rule of law, a multi-party system, courts, multiple opinions, etc., etc. So we are very much a country of the West as well. Language. So keeping this scenario, we are rightfully placed to articulate all points of views, because all points of views exist in this country. And thus the G20 presidency has come at a very opportune moment, and I'm grateful to the leadership of this country, especially the Prime Minister, who's utilized this opportunity to build brand India and to showcase to the world what India stands for. For a long time, our voice was not being heard. For a long time, we were unable to communicate how we felt on multiple issues. But because of G20 presidency and year being 2023, when Amrit Kal is over, 75 years of India's independence, moving on Amrit Kal, the next 25 years, how they are going to impact the world and the nation building exercise itself is happening right now. So 23 is a watershed moment in our history. It's a watershed moment in the global history also, because world is dealing with multiplicity of plurality of the problems is an easy word to replicate, but the situation is not as easy as the word comes out. We were still struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic and post-effect. The world was struggling with broken supply chain mechanism. The world is struggling with conflicts across the globe. World is struggling with coming to a point of view where multilateral institutions have failed in their effort for the purpose for which they were created in the first place. So when you're dealing with poly-crisis situation, I think India turns out to be a country which voices the sense and sensibility of the moment. And that sense and sensibility of the moment is what gets to be respected, what gets to be heard, which gets to be paid heed to, and that's what we are seeing the change. So when we say we have an independent point of view, I would say we have a point of view which is more harmonious in nature, and every democratic country, end of the day, is answerable to its own people. To protect their interests, to protect their needs is the responsibility of a democratically elected government. Now, food, fuel, fertilizer, no country can manage without these three needs. And we are not the most rich nation of the world where we can just dole out the dollars and manage our lives. No, we cannot. We have to manage these many lives within the paucity of resources. And within that paucity of resources, keep the aspirations going. Have Chandrayaan, have Aditya 1 also. Within this paucity of resources, feed 82 crore people during COVID-19. Continue that program even till date. Provide vaccination for each and every individual living in this beautiful country called India. And when you have little extra provided to the world. So I think in this crisis, India offers the sense and sensibility to the situation the world is faced with. And we are a trusting partner. What you give, what you take from us is all on the table. It's lying before everyone. So when Sri Lanka fell to the crisis situation, I must add that none came forward. We were the ones who came forward.
Yeah.
So many examples I can give. But we have showcased the way forward. And one thing I must say, when COVID-19 happened, and which I think is a very important fact which somehow gets to be brushed aside, and that is when India made its own vaccines. And the time was a time of crisis, a global crisis. I know how we were mocked at and how dead bodies were being shown, etc., to pull us down. But we took it with all humility, showcased compassion, did not use that as an opportunity to make money. We did not use that as a commercial opportunity to give vaccines to other countries. We utilized that opportunity to extend a helping hand to our brothers and sisters in true sense, Vasudev Kutumbakam. If your family members are not well, that's not the time to extort money out of them. That's not the way decent beings live. And India showcased its value system at that point in time. We did not use that as a commercial opportunity, and that is the strength of India. And that's what world is coming around to. They are all paying heed to what they are saying.
You know, Prime Minister Modi made a very historic statement in the initial phase of the Russia-Ukraine war. He said, this is not an era of war. And subsequently, during the annual Raisina dialogue, we saw both the foreign ministers of Russia and the US State Secretary actually in Delhi, discussing on the parallels, although there wasn't any consensus on the foreign ministers meeting of the G20, but still, it made sense that, global powers were in New Delhi and discussing this issue. How do you see India's role in this new international order and the changing dynamics of the Indian foreign policy? I ask this because, again, we saw a lot of statements coming in, particularly from Europe, and the rebuttal that Prime Minister Modi, Minister Jaishankar, and you actually gave on those statements.
So I would say that, people need to understand. And people cannot look at things from the prism which belongs to them. The multiplicity of voices and as we say, the truth remains the truth. And that truth can have various interpretations. For example, multiple blind men looking at an elephant, so somebody calling it a fan, somebody calling it a pillar, etc., etc. That story comes to the forefront, that none is able to fathom the elephant in the room.
Right.
Because they are all blindfolded. A person who's standing at a distance, you need to hear, you need to listen to. And ultimately, you need to go deep into the existence of sense and sensibility. Prime Minister made it clear, Buddh and not Yudh, which is era of peace and prosperity, which with great difficulty this world has brought it upon itself. Everyone struggled, everyone brought this more harmonious existence. But the multilateral institutions which were created post-World War II, these institutions were created with two specific purposes. One was not to allow a war to take place. Number two, if there is any conflict, that needs to be resolved in an arbitration method, not in an arbitrary manner, but through arbitration, conciliation, and UN, etc. These bodies should probably be able to resolve the conflicts. In our view, if you look at the history as the history exists and continues to exist, many conflicts have happened post the creation of UN. So UN by itself has not succeeded in two objectives with which it was created. And plus, over this period of more than 75 years, the geography has changed, the global positioning has changed, the world has changed. And the present UN does not reflect the changed realities. Those changed realities need to be reflected so that these two objectives can be attained. These two objectives cannot be attained until unless the representational body represents the real truth or close to the truth. It doesn't. And thus, the conflicts are happening, but no answers from the global body are coming through. That means the global body needs to reform itself. And with that process of reformation, of which India has been greatly supportive of and has been seeking, is that this process of reform must come forward, and we should be able to address the conflicts so that all that humanity has gained over these periods doesn't get wasted away. And defense is one part of the story, but war need not become a business. For some, war has become business. And that's what probably the world together, the globe together, needs to address. And until unless we address the core issues, we will not be able to address the problems the world is facing, because today, whether one likes it or doesn't like it, we are living in a global village.
Yeah.
And if I go by the most important tagline of G20 being presidency of India, Vasudev Kutumbakam. If world is one family, how is it that one member of the family suffers and rest will not feel the pain? It is the pain, whether you like it or not, is going to be inflicted on everyone. So no one should suffer is the way forward, and until and unless we have methods in which we can reconcile, we can cooperate, we can work together to resolve, address the issues the way they exist, the problems will remain. We should try and adopt a harmonious methodology to address various issues.
I have a political question on the world is one family, but I'll end it with that. But first question before that, on the G20, Ministry of Culture is also playing a very significant role.
Yes.
You're also hosting some of the delegations. Could you throw some light? Probably everything cannot be revealed, but at least a glimmer of what exactly is happening.
So I will reveal what we have done so far.
Sure.
So we are in total, we will be hosting 250 plus, maybe 52 consultations across in 50 plus locations. And so every geographical location comes with its own taste. So on the gourmet side, if you are being hosted in Goa, you get to eat the cuisine of that region. You get to see the dance and music of that region. You get to meet people from that region. The state government is equally participant. The decorations, etc., will be from that region. The gift, etc., will be sourced from the local people. And if you are, say, in Arunachal, then the Arunachalis will be the hosts. The dance, the music, everything will be from that region. The food, etc. The local fare will also be served along with the international fare. The dresses, etc., the beads, the decorations. So we've tried to showcase everything that is visible from the cultural perspective, which can be felt through 5 senses. We've tried to immerse people coming from outside into that culture of that particular region. That's been the theme on one side. On the other side, I would say, when, say, culture ministries working group were working. So very first working group was in Khajuraho. Now Khajuraho, you can see that it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, beautiful temples carved out of stone, technology which cannot be replicated even with lasers today.
Yeah.
And then we held the very first exhibition which coincided with our theme and that is restitution of artifacts. So bringing the artifacts back to the place they belong. And whether they are stolen, they are not stolen, if they've been taken away. So restituting the works of art to the places it belongs, because when they are taken away, they are virtually decapitated from its roots, which does not serve humanity, and they get decontextualized. So if Ma Annapurna is lying in some showcase in some university or some museum, it is decontextualized because Ma Annapurna is worshipped in Varanasi. Ma Annapurna in that small little form is actually the biggest thought behind Shiv and Shakti. So wherever Shiv is present, Shakti is also present. Wherever Shakti is present, Shiv is also present. The size varies as per the eminence given to the role assigned. So in Kashi, it's a place of Shiv. So Shakti, even in the smallest form, is available to protect, to feed, to look after, to nurture the humanity in that region. Now that gets decontextualized by simply saying, oh, this is a 2,000-year-old statue. It is not a statue. It may be a statue for some, but for others it's God. And thus restitution is our basic contextualizing as part of our working group methodology. So we brought the exhibition of stolen artifacts in Khajuraho meet. The second was Bhubaneswar, where we had the culture working group second meet, and that was sustainability and living art forms. Now, looking at Orissa, like other places also, Orissa by itself, forget about every other part of the country, by itself is host to so many art forms, from umbrella making to embroidery to writing on the palm leaf to ikat to bronze metalwork to silver filigree to stonecraft to paintings, patchitra, textiles. So there are 51 art forms which are alive in Orissa, and there's a living museum. So that became the piece de resistance for everyone else to visit and see that there are living art forms where people have worked through the centuries, not because of patronage, but in spite of difficulties, they have continued with their skill. And that's the beauty of this country, where it's a living civilization. Now, when we say Harappan and pre-Harappan era, all those art forms continue till date. And that's the beauty of this country. So, living heritage for sustainability is the next theme, which gets to be worked at in Bhubaneswar. Then we had Hampi as the third place of the culture working group, where we showcase sustainability. And in that, the Lambari tribe of India. So, I mean, people don't understand that. As we understand, we call it, Vanavasi, Adivasi, tribes, diversity. Now, Lambari are basically mobile tribes, but their artwork, their craft is something to vie for. We created a Guinness Book of Record by having those many panels of crafted pieces of embroidery, and we put it all together as an ensemble. And that was on the sustainability aspect, that through art and craft and living traditions, we can continue with the heritage and make it part of sustainability pattern. Last working group was at Varanasi, and the theme, of course, was to link the whole thing to the big theme of macro theme of Vasudev Kutumbakam. And so last was Sur Vasudha, which is a composition done on Indian ragas from Bhairavi to others, and Khamaj, on which all the instruments of other countries, not just the G20 countries, but all the participating nations, so 29 countries, 29 musicians from other countries, group of 40 singers and puppeteers to dancers to classical dancers, huge show we created that Survasudha to showcase that Indian knowledge system, and especially the music, which today science is discovering to be a healer in so many other ways. We were the creators of Samved, and we are the people who have huge traditions in music. And Varanasi is a culture city to be recognized, has been recognized by UNESCO as the city of music. A whole lot of people come to that city for performance, for art, for a city of knowledge. And that city of knowledge, music is a tradition which is recognized by Ma Saraswati. And Ganesh Stuti will be done by all art forms everywhere. And that is the beauty of this country, which has 2 schools, classical schools of music. Tell me how many countries will have 2 classical schools of music, but India has. And the ability to transform itself into playing Western classical also. And that is where the entire coordination vested. So I would say with G20 presidency, we've showcased what India is world-renowned, and that is its arts and craft, where every human being in this country is creative soul. And that creativity vests in every hand, every eye, every feet. And you can see it in dresses, you can see it in speeches, you can see it in paintings. Even the uninitiated one know they will have their own idea of color combination and dress the way they want to dress. Make things out of clay, make things out of wood, make things out of metals. And that's what we try to showcase. And coming to G20 main meeting, we have arranged an exhibition. We've also showcased digitization process in this period. We've tried to showcase our strength in utilizing technologies to preserve and conserve our culture also, and even to disseminate knowledge related to our culture, and to all the dying art forms, to all the difficult performances, to carry those traditions to many big numbers, large number of people. Museums through the digitization process, preservation, conservation through digitization process. So we've tried to utilize the technology also, and that's what we will be showcasing.
Well, you have a hectic week ahead. We wish you all the very best for the G20 summit. But as promised, I have to ask you a political question because I realize you are a very well-known politician, that too in New Delhi. A committee has been formed, under the chairmanship of the former President Ramnath Kovind for one state, one election. This has been something that has been debated for a very long time for various reasons. And do you think the economic burden will also reduce? A lot of other things will drastically reduce if this is adopted either within the next 6 months or anytime in future.
So I didn't want to touch upon this, but now that you've asked, I don't want you to play this that, oh, Meenakshi Lekhi was running away from answers, which I don't. And I am not known to be somebody who likes to hide her opinion or who runs away from questions. So my answer is, you rightly said that this has been thought about for a long time. And I can safely say that I was also part of this process initially. I've spoken about it a couple of times, I've written about it a couple of times. So after the entire study, and even there is a mathematical formulation to it, this is something which is good for the country. For the simple reason, many a times, many political forces work against each other, not because they think it is wrong, but because they know there is politics in it. So if you sort of do away with the anti-campaigning and campaigning in single go, 5 years or at least 4.5 years, you work with sincerity because you know there is no election happening. So you need to help the people of the country. You need to, create infrastructures, fight on those issues, work together in synergy. So it amounts to greater synergy even amongst political opponents for at least 4.5 years. 6 months before the elections, you can start abusing each other, find faults with each other. And of course, for everybody else who understands the nature of politics, would also understand that a lot of time, energy, finances get wasted in this process. And in this process, when at multiple levels you work against each other, or when a particular road needs to be built, for example, and just an example, you start doing politics on that because you think if the person makes this road, elections round the corner, the person will get the credit, so let's stop the road from happening. Let's stop the work, or the neighbors who are very happily selling their land, and you have 2 of your party members, you say, we will not sell. So 20 have sold, 2 are still sitting on it. That patch which may not be fetching a good price, but they're getting a good price, but just for the sake of politics, they'll delay it by 1 year. So, and every time you are planning, I would speak for myself, you're planning to sit down in a room, because most work does not get done in front of the cameras or on the streets. It gets done in the close confine of a room with pen and paper, some chart and some things, material before you, and you start marking things. You have no time to do that. You're busy contesting election one after the other. So obviously the infrastructure development, to the development of the country, to synergy in the system, to the costs which get escalated by multiplicity of elections, one nation, one election makes all the sense. I'm not quite sure when is it coming, how is it coming, what the framework is, but in the past there have been several consultations and several work, and I personally have been part of some of them. So, and after studying, after trying to understand this, I would say I'm one for it, but I'm not speaking on behalf of the government, I'm not speaking on behalf of people who are active in this field, but I'm just making a personal statement, and this can go on record.
Well, Madam Minister, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.